Now a special First Coast News On Your Side presentation. Vivid Hues, Stories of Black History. Sponsored by ViStar Credit Union.
From inside the courtroom to the deck of the USS West Virginia battleship, to the origins of staple recipes rooted in survival, Vivid Hues Stories of Black History paints a picture that cannot be erased.
If a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated. Carter G. Woodson.
Educate.
Inspire.
Uplift. Thanks for joining us. I'm Keitha Nelson. Using vibrant colors, we're sharing at times a dark past that helped to shape us all. Local artists and some powerful voices will bring to life our history, Black history, America's history. You may have heard of the Gullah Geechee people. Jacksonville in particular has a large number of Gullah descendants. Artist Tatiana Kitchen, Sandra Maureen, and Dr. Marlena Smalls teaches us about this unique culture with strong communal ties.
Good Lord.
Who are you? Where do you come from? How do you know?
Descendants of West and Central Africans, chained, enslaved, and forced to cultivate the lands of the lower Atlantic state.
North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
You too could be Gullah. Show me the way. Your people, Gullah Geechee, speaking with a tongue infused in Creole.
Wrapped in grammatical roots from African and European languages.
A unique culture with strong communal ties that still remain to this day.
You can see it in the arts and crafts.
Taste those ties in food.
And feel it in the music.
Oh my good Lord. Oh.
Jacksonville, Florida, home of the largest concentration of Gullah Geechee descendants.
Lineage stretched through the Villa, neighborhoods reaching Brooklyn and beyond. Paint blue lined ceilings, warding away spirits, but the danger of displacement remains. Longtime residents making way for gentrification, heirs' property passed through generations, identity rooted in the land. And carry me home.
There's a Gullah saying which means what is hidden can be very important.
Must take care of the root for the healthy tree. Simply means take care of the roots in order to heal the tree.
Trailblazer Jane Bolin was the first Black female judge in the United States. She inspired Duval County's first elected Black female judge, Rhonda Peoples-Waters, who will share Bolin's story today, along with student artist Jaya Peoples.
It's been said that kids can't become what they can't see. Jane Bolin had a front row seat to the law. Her father, in the late 1800s, had his own law practice in Poughkeepsie, New York, an area surrounded by smaller towns where the Ku Klux Klan was active. The presence of racism was felt and seen, but did not serve its purpose as a deterrent. With her sights set on the justice system, Bolin graduated high school at 15 years old and enrolled in Wellesley College at 16. Looking past ridicule, social isolation, and the incessant no's hurled her way, she would become many firsts. 1931, the first Black woman to earn a law degree from Yale. 1939, first black female judge in the United States. 1943, first black woman to join the Association of the Bar in New York City. Appointed in 1939 as a judge over the Domestic Relations Court, she served there for 40 years. A mother of one and protector of many, Boland presided in every borough of New York City. Her job, she said, was not to punish, but to help. As a family court judge, she helped in the assignment of probation officers on the basis of race and the placement of children in child care agencies based on ethnic background. Reluctantly, Boland retired in 1978. Because of her, countless others can now see the possibilities when pushing past the word no. Boland died in 2007 at the age of 98. But her vision, her accomplishments are everlasting.
Honoring our nation's first black Marines, trained in segregated camps, forced to withstand deplorable conditions, pushed to quit and go home. At least 20,000 chose to stay. You'll hear from one of them when Vivid Hues, Stories of Black History returns.
Welcome back. You're watching Vivid Hues, Stories of Black History. I'm Keitha Nelson. The first black United States Marines became known as the Munford Point Marines. 97-year-old George McIvory was among that group. He, along with retired Master Sergeant Ron Jackson and student artist Jackson Sanders, shares their bravery.
Right outside of Jacksonville, North Carolina, sat a segregated camp for black men aiming to earn the title of Marine. 20,000 of them from 1942 to 1949 would endure rigid lessons with tough drill instructors and racial prejudice. In a swampy, wildlife-ridden forest area in the New River.
In words of one of those men, Alfred Gaines, my best friend, standing there with blood in our boots, but scared to barb or weave, because we may fail and disgrace our families.
Munford Point, the only Marine training center at its time for his kind. A portion of mankind thought to be incapable and unworthy. Fighting 2 wars, one overseas and another at home.
We fought to protect a nation that didn't care to protect us. We were not granted basic civil rights.
Initially dedicated to serve in non-combat support roles, over time, black Marines picked up guns to fight invasions during war. Some came to be known as the best gunners in the Marine Corps.
By July of 1948, President Harry Truman penned an executive order requiring the desegregation of the armed forces. Munford Point was deactivated as a recruit training depot in 1949. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi, Marines. Hoorah!
Famed chef Kenny Gilbert compares soul food to a warm hug from Grandma. Its origin rooted in survival, scraps given to the enslaved that became staple recipes we still enjoy to this day.
Jacksonville artist Chris Clark paints a portrait of Dory Miller as retired Master Chief Mac Ellis shares the story of the first African American to earn the Navy Cross.
A blaring alarm, setting off panic and chaos. Sailors rushing to defend each other, our nation and its honor. World War II grew true heroes, some unexpected. A Negro enlisted to serve aboard the USS West Virginia. This is not just the story of one sailor. Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941, Dory Miller, the son of Texas sharecroppers and the grandson of slaves, a lowly mess attendant turned gunner. He emerged as a Pearl Harbor hero. As his battleship is hit by Japanese torpedoes and bombs, Miller went from folding laundry to firing at enemy planes, contradicting then popular belief that a Negro could not serve with whites, perform in combat, comprehend what it takes to be heroic. Amid the attack on Pearl Harbor, Miller fought fires on the bridge. On the ship's deck, he pulled sailors from the burning water. He ignored orders to abandon ship, staying behind to help outside of his rank and expectations. He was one of the last to leave the West Virginia that morning. He earned the Navy Cross, a commendation by Navy Secretary Frank Knox, and praise from Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, Commander-in-Fleet of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, the first African American to receive the honor. Eager to get back to work, in 1943, he boarded the aircraft carrier USS Liscombe Bay. It was sunk by a Japanese submarine. Dory, at 23 years old, was never seen again. Dying in battle, yet kept alive in history.
It's like a warm hug from Grandma. That's how famed chef Kenny Gilbert describes soul food. We're taking a look at its origins with the help of student artist Ada Madison.
Soul food, whipped up in the Deep South, low-quality food rations given to the enslaved, churned into meals that would preserve African food traditions to this day. Shaping how Americans eat with staple recipes rooted in survival, connecting the past to our present. Rice was among the crops taken from Africa by slave traders to feed the enslaved during the Middle Passage, then later grown on plantations. One-pot recipes like jambalaya, similar to jollof rice, popular in West African countries, are staple in African dishes. On slave ships, okra made its way to the Americas, an ingredient in gumbo usually served fried in the Deep South. Cuts of pork least desired, including feet, internal organs, and the head were given to the enslaved. Traditional African cooking, a combination of seasonings, hot peppers, and vinegar, helped covering up the poor flavor. Collard greens were boiled in pork fat and seasoned with available vegetables. The juices left behind, known as pot liquor, sopped up with cornbread. Soul food contains an important history that connects Black culture to its African roots. Soul food to me is simply family. The spirit of breaking bread, of what you have in the moment that is prepared from memory and tradition. Cleaning collard greens, or snapping or shelling peas, pulling green tomatoes from the vine from the garden, then slicing and soaking in buttermilk and spices, then to dredge in cornmeal to fry up. Soul food is a warm hug from Grandma, where that love transports to food.
To anyone who has ever dreamed of going higher than others' expectations, rising to make history, soaring above what most can see, Guyon Bluford is about to open your eyes to the endless possibilities in this world and far beyond. Stay with us.
Thanks for tuning in. You're watching Vivid Hues, Stories of Black History. I'm Keitha Nelson. You've likely heard of historically black colleges and universities. You're about to learn their history from the first female band member of the famed Marching 100 and the 25th president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Norma White.
Historically black colleges and universities, created as a direct response to racial discrimination. Educating black Americans was prohibited in most southern states prior to the Civil War, and often discouraged in northern states. Unapologetic black space on rich soil where students feel freedom to become more than the status quo. The nation's first and oldest, Cheney University, established in 1837, followed by the University of the District of Columbia in 1851, Lincoln University in 1954, and Wilberforce 2 years after. Educating the children of those formerly enslaved, training them to teach others. At the center of the American story sits HBCUs, providing black Americans with the most basic of human rights, access to higher education. Philanthropists, free blacks, and religious organizations started most of the nation's HBCUs. Now, more than 100 of them across the United States continue to educate generations of leaders, including my alma mater, Florida A&M University. Go Rattlers, because the Rattlers will strike and strike and strike again.
The first African American to fly in space in 1983, Guyon Bluford shares his story as artist Keith Doles helps us to visualize the experience.
The views outside of these windows are amazing. I can see 1,000 miles in any direction. I'm even flying at 18,000 miles an hour. Fast enough to cross the United States in only 10 minutes. Flying in space is great. I definitely want to do this again. On my first flight in space, we were delayed by rain. We had to sit on the launch pad for 15 minutes before we lifted off at 2:30 in the morning. It took us only 8.5 minutes to get into orbit. What a fabulous ride. I later flew 3 more flights into space. For an inner city's kid from Philadelphia, flying in space was a dream come true. I grew up making model airplanes, reading books about airplanes, and wanting to be an aerospace engineer. I loved math and science at school, and here I am on orbit, flying in the space shuttle. I worked hard to get here. I became a pilot in the Air Force, flew fighter airplanes in Vietnam, and became an instructor pilot. I went back to school to learn more about aerospace engineering, and finally became an astronaut. When I was in high school, I had a college counselor indicate that I was not college material. Well, she was wrong. I got a bachelor, master's, and PhD in aerospace engineering, and even an MBA. I proved her wrong. I knew that I could do it. Flying in space taught me that I could be anything I want to be. If I dream big, work hard, and be persistent, I can achieve whatever goals I set. I aimed high and became an astronaut.
We hope you've enjoyed this special presentation, and we thank you for joining us for Vivid Hues, Stories of Black History. To learn more about all of the artists, subjects, and powerful voices featured in this program, visit firstcoastnews.com.
Thank you for joining us. This has been a special presentation of First Coast News on your side, Vivid Hues, Stories of Black History, sponsored by ViStar Credit Union.